Her husband abandoned her pregnant on the streets. A millionaire's midnight discovery changed everything. The city never truly sleeps. At midnight, the streets of Manhattan still hummed with distant traffic, the occasional taxi cutting through puddles left by evening rain. But on the quiet bench beneath the old oak tree in Riverside Park, there was only silence and the soft, broken sound of a woman crying. Her name was Elena Hartwell, 26 years old, 9 months pregnant, and completely, utterly alone. She sat hunched on the wooden bench, her white floral dress, once her favorite, covered in pink roses she had chosen herself on a happier afternoon, now damp from the night air. Her ash-blonde hair fell in tangled waves around her pale face. Both hands cradled her enormous belly, as if trying to protect the child inside from the cruel world outside. 3 hours ago, her husband Daniel had looked her in the eyes and said the words she never thought she would hear. "I'm done, Elena. I never wanted this baby. I never wanted this life." He had packed a single bag. He had walked out the door, and he had not looked back. The apartment, their apartment, had been in his name only. She had discovered this tonight when the building manager had appeared at the door 30 minutes after Daniel left, holding an eviction notice. Daniel had stopped paying rent for 3 months. He'd been planning this for a long time. Elena had nowhere to go. Her parents were gone. Her only sister lived in another country. She had given up her nursing job 8 months ago when the pregnancy complications had made standing for 12-hour shifts impossible. She had trusted Daniel. She had trusted that they were building something together. She had been wrong. So here she was. Midnight. A park bench. 9 months pregnant. With $43 in her purse and a phone battery at 4%. She did not even have the energy to cry anymore. She simply sat, one hand on her belly, staring at the dark surface of the river in the distance, wondering how a life could fall apart so completely and so quietly. Marcus Caldwell had not intended to be in the park at midnight. He was 41 years old, the founder and CEO of Caldwell Technologies, a company worth $3.2 billion, according to last quarter's valuation. He had dinner meetings that ended at 10, conference calls with Tokyo that began at 2 in the morning, and a schedule so packed that his assistant color-coded it in 4 different colors just to keep it manageable. But tonight, after the dinner meeting, something had pulled him away from his waiting car. His driver had looked confused when Marcus had simply said, "I'll walk, go home." Marcus himself could not explain it. He simply needed air. He needed to feel like a human being for 20 minutes instead of a corporation wrapped in a tailored suit. He had walked 6 blocks before entering the park. He almost missed her entirely. It was the sound that stopped him. Not loud crying, nothing dramatic, just the quietest, most exhausted sound of someone who had run completely out of tears and was simply breathing through pain. Marcus had heard that sound once before. The night his mother had sat in a hospital hallway after his father's diagnosis, not crying, just breathing because some grief is too large for tears. He turned, and he saw her. A young woman, visibly 9 months pregnant, sitting alone on a bench at midnight, her head bowed, her hands on her belly, her whole body carrying a weight that had nothing to do with the child she was carrying. Marcus Caldwell had learned long ago to mind his own business. He had learned that people in New York did not want strangers approaching them. He had learned to keep walking, but his feet had already stopped. "Excuse me," he said quietly, not wanting to frighten her. "Are you all right?" She looked up. Even in the dim park lighting, he could see that she was not all right. Her eyes, a remarkable blue-green color, he noticed, a kind of eyes that seemed lit from within, were swollen from crying. Her face was pale. She looked exhausted in the way that goes beyond one bad night. She looked like someone whose world had just ended. "I'm fine," she said automatically. The answer of someone who has been taught not to ask for help. Marcus did not leave. "You're sitting alone in a park at midnight," he said gently, 9 months pregnant, and you've clearly been crying. You don't have to tell me anything. But I'm not going to just walk past you. Something in his voice, calm, genuine, carrying no agenda, made Elena's careful walls crack just slightly. She looked at him, a tall man in a charcoal gray suit, dark hair, sharp features, kind eyes. He did not look threatening. He looked like someone who actually saw her, and something about being truly seen, after a night of being so completely discarded, broke something open in her chest. She told him everything, not because she is foolish, not because she trusted strangers, but because it was midnight and she had nothing left to lose and the words needed to go somewhere before she drowned in them. She told him about Daniel, about the apartment, about the eviction notice still folded in her purse, about the $43, about the baby who was due in 11 days and had no nursery, no home, no father waiting. Marcus listened. He did not interrupt. He did not offer empty reassurances. He simply listened with the full, rare attention of someone who understood that sometimes the most important thing you can give another person is the space to be heard. When she finished, the park was completely silent. Then Marcus reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. "I have an apartment," he said simply. "A guest apartment on the 4th floor of my building. It's been empty for 2 years. It has 3 bedrooms, a fully stocked kitchen, and a nursery that my interior designer set up for a project that never moved forward." Elena stared at him. "I'm not offering you charity," he continued, reading her expression. "I'm offering you 4 walls and a safe place for the next 3 months while you rebuild. After that, whatever you decide, I will support. But tonight you are not sleeping on this bench." "I don't know you," she whispered. "No," he agreed. "My name is Marcus Caldwell. I'll give you every piece of ID I own. You can call my office number, which is on Google, and verify I'm who I say I am. I'll call my building's front desk right now so there's a staff member present when we arrive. You make every decision. I just don't want you to be alone tonight." Elena Hartwell looked at this stranger in his expensive suit, kneeling on the grass beside her park bench in the middle of the night, speaking to her not with pity but with a straightforward, practical kindness that asked nothing in return. And for the first time in many hours she took a breath that did not feel like drowning. "Okay," she said softly. The apartment was everything he had described and more. Warm, clean, quiet. The nursery had a white crib, soft yellow walls, a rocking chair by the window. Elena stood in the doorway and could not speak for a long moment. Marcus had his housekeeper prepare food, real food, warm soup and bread, and had left it on the kitchen counter with a note that said simply, "Eat, sleep, you're safe here." He had not stayed. He had shown her the apartment, made sure she had his contact number and the front desk number, and left. No expectations, no conditions, just a door that closed behind him and the extraordinary gift of safety. Elena sat in the rocking chair in the yellow nursery and ate her soup and cried again. But differently this time. Not the hollow, endless crying of someone falling, the releasing kind, the kind that means something is beginning to lift. 11 days later, at 4:47 in the morning, Elena gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Rose, after the flowers on the dress she had been wearing the night a stranger had stopped walking and chosen to see her. Marcus Caldwell sent flowers to the hospital, white roses. He did not visit uninvited. He simply sent a card that said, "Congratulations, you did something incredibly brave." In the weeks that followed, something quiet and unhurried began to grow between them. Not a dramatic love story, something more real than that. He would stop by to check if she needed anything. She would have coffee ready. They would talk about her nursing career, which she was planning to return to, about his company, which he spoke of with less excitement than she expected, about books they had both read, about the strange and specific loneliness of being surrounded by people and still feeling completely alone. Rose would sleep in her yellow nursery, while her mother and this unexpected man sat at the kitchen table and discovered, slowly and without urgency, that perhaps the universe had arranged a midnight park bench encounter for reasons larger than either of them had understood. 6 months later, Elena Hartwell returned to nursing, not as an employee, but as the director of a new community health initiative that Caldwell Technologies was funding. The initiative provided free prenatal care to women in crisis across 3 New York boroughs. It had been Marcus's idea, but the name of the program had been Elena's choice. She had called it the Midnight Project, because sometimes the most important things begin at midnight, on a park bench, when someone stops walking and decides that a stranger's pain is worth their time. Daniel Hartwell, her ex-husband, saw a news article about the program 8 months after he had left. He saw Elena's photograph, confident, radiant, standing beside a man who looked at her the way he never had. He sat with that for a long time. Some doors, once closed, do not reopen, and sometimes the cruelest things that happen to us are simply the universe clearing space for something we could not have imagined on our own. Elena knew this now. Rose knew it too. In the wordless way that babies know things. Sleeping peacefully in her yellow nursery, surrounded by white roses, in a home built not from obligation but from an act of pure, unexpected human kindness at midnight.